watching my video, but I could speak on the phone.
That works.
Is everybody in already? Do we have a quorum?
We do.
Oh, awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and start the meeting. Good evening, everyone. It's Tuesday, August 25th, 2020, 7:07 p.m. And this is August Clarkston City Council work session. I call this meeting to order. I will start with roll call. If I will call your name, if you could say aye. Councilmember Carroll. Councilmember Carroll.
Muted.
I'm not sure. Okay, is he muted? Okay,
he's here, but he's muted.
Okay, Councilmember Hassan. Councilmember Hassan.
Did not see him.
Councilmember Hopkins.
Here. Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye. Here.
This is Vice Mayor Yasu. I'm also on the line. And we have a few agenda items on the tonight. I will first read out our resident comment policies. Any member of the public may address questions or comments to the council referencing only agenda items after the mayor and the council have had the opportunity to discuss the agenda item. Each attendee will be allowed 3 minutes for comments at the discretion of the presiding officer. Attendees will be asked to conclude their comments in a reasonable time period if they exceed the 3 minutes limit. We don't have any presentation in old business. We got a few new businesses. I will start with E1, approve a resolution to declare a vacancy in the office of council member and call a special call election to fill the unexpired term. And I will refer our city manager on this.
Good evening, Mr. Vice Mayor and Council. This is Robin Gomez, the Clarkston City Manager. This item, as the Vice Mayor just read, is to discuss and approve at the council meeting a resolution declaring the vacancy in one of our council seats and calling for the special election to fill the unexpired term that will conclude on December 31st of 2021. Recently, former council member Y.T. Bell qualified to run for the vacant Clarkston mayor seat. In so qualifying, that creates a vacancy in the seat in the council seat she was previously holding. Per our charter, a vacancy shall be declared by the vice mayor at a regular meeting of the city council and then be affirmed by a vote of the city council. We will be filling the vacancy, or the process to fill the vacancy is to hold a special election, since this term will not end within the next 12 months. As I stated, it is set to expire, the term to conclude December 31st, 2021 or next year. The special election shall be held as required under Georgia Code. We have been informed that the next election to be held, so that we meet all the requirements of our charter and Georgia Code, that special election will be part of the primary election that is scheduled for March 16th of 2021. Our city clerk, who serves as the city's election superintendent, will call upon approval of this item at the council meeting, will call a special election to be held on that March 16th, 2021 date. We will identify, and the clerk will announce, a qualifying period for that special election to fill that council seat.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. I have a quick question first. Since the term is expiring at the end of the year 2021, I do remember reading a memo from our city attorney indicating that we have two options, whether to hold on this and not I'm not sure how we say it, but not make it vacant until January, I believe, and then somebody could be appointed, and since that term is expiring the same year. And the other alternative is obviously this one, to hold a special call election. My biggest concern is for somebody to run twice within almost 6 months of period. I think that would be really not nice, but I think that's to be left up to the individual who would want to run for the seat. But I think I would like to get clarification why we are doing this right now, and I would like to hear from our city attorney.
Sure. The timing calls for the special election. I'd have to pull up the charter and look. It's either, I think it's 1 year, or it might have been 6 months. Whichever the time frame is, if the vacancy occurs within that time period of the end of the term, then that's when the city council can leave it vacant or appoint the replacement themselves. But in this case, it's August, and it would be well over a year and 4 months until the end of the term. So, you know, whereas it would be one thing to wait an extra month if that was the difference to declare the vacancy, I don't recommend doing that for a period of now until next year. I think that would just not be the spirit of what the charter says to do.
So what changed between the time you gave us that memo and now?
Well, the memo was about 2 different circumstances, and it depended on when the timing is the only difference. Like the memo set out some different options depending on when events occurred and when the person's term would be up. So now we have a specific example.
Right.
That, excuse me?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
I brought it up weeks ago, so that's why I was going to comment.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that now that we have a specific example, we just look at the timing of this specific example, and it's too long until the term expires.
Any questions from the council? All right. If there is none, I want to give the opportunity from the community to, from the public to comment on this agenda item. If you could raise your hands or type on the chat box, you will be recognized so that you can make your comments. Please keep it within the 3 minutes limit.
We have Mr. Dean Moore raised his hand. So Dean Moore, you have 3 minutes. Please proceed.
Okay. The postponement of declaring the seat vacant would not be a good thing to do. It wouldn't be fair to everybody in the city who may be interested in running for that seat. So I don't recommend putting it off. It was just pointed out, I think the last time this happened was that we're very close to the line of whether we spend the money on an extra election or we don't, and that being the situation, and not a very likely situation that we were going to have a lot of people trying to get that seat. And as it turns out, we didn't have anybody applying for that seat to run in that special election. We only had one person that showed up, which was Jamie Carroll, and that's how he got on council originally. And then the end of the year, he went ahead and ran for office and won the election, the regular election. At this point, I don't think that would be good, considering the controversies we've had in the past couple of years, past 3 years. I think there'll be a lot of people applying for this position. So I recommend you go ahead and declare it tonight. One thing I am disappointed in is that the qualifying period has not been identified in in what was posted. It seems like that could have been decided by the clerk, the elections clerk, and posted going into this meeting, so we had more information instead of less. I'm always in favor of having more information in making decisions, particularly situations like this and decisions like this. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Any other comments?
Yeah, I had one.
Go ahead, sir.
I'm sorry, Mr. Brian Medford has his hand up. Go ahead, Brian Medford, you have 3 minutes.
Okay. So as a former member of the Charter Review Committee, part of this rule was put in place to keep from having cronies appointed by the City Council. We're trying to protect that ability of the city to still choose their representatives. Not to be dramatic, but if y'all don't declare this open, you're asking for basically pitchforks and torches at the meetings if we don't declare this open for a vote. It's too long. If you tried to delay this and say we're just going to hold it open and then appoint somebody, that's shenanigans. I mean, really clear shenanigans. It needs to be elections. It needs to be a proper vote. Yes, it's going to cost us, but it's spelled out pretty clearly in the charter how we handle these kind of vacancies. We just need to follow the rules and do what we need to do. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Hudlock, go ahead, sir.
I'm trying to understand when the actual election would be. Would it be in March? Or is that when we would announce it?
The election would be in March.
Okay, so it'd be announced sometime in January. We'd have a qualifying period. We have an election in March. They just have to save their campaign signs, whoever wins. I wish we could do it a better way, but we're snagged with this. I think that we have to have an election. I just wish it could be sooner. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments on this agenda item?
Yeah, I want to speak.
Please, go ahead.
This is Shana McAllister. I'm kind of divided on this issue, to be honest. Right now, we have 2, open seats, 2 spots on the council, and honestly, I would love to get these seats filled as soon as possible. However, I do understand that, pitchforks will come out and, everybody on the council now just throws one of their people in there. I understand that. I'm kind of, I'm open to see what happens, but I'm leaning more towards filling that seat ASAP. And that's all.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice Mayor, this is Stephen. I realized one thing that would have been good to include in my answer to your question of what changed from the memo.
Right.
And what the main factor on the timing that didn't necessarily change, but we just found out what it was, is when would the qualifying period be for the mayor's race? And if you remember, that moved forward in time because of the issues with absentee balloting in DeKalb County. And so that's what took it away. I looked up, the charter is 12 months, and it's if the election will be in 12 months. So hypothetically, if the mayor qualifying would have been in October, for example, then it could have carried over to the November meeting and then been within 12 months. But as it happened with the coronavirus, the absentee ballots, and DeKalb asking us to move up the election, the qualifying period substantially, that's how that we got where we are.
Thanks. That was pretty much what I was trying to clarify, because you had given us two alternatives, but this one just gives us one alternative. And by the way, I'm not interested on appointing anybody. I really leave that up to the residents of Clarkston to decide who is going to be the next person that they select. Any other comments from the council, or from the community on this agenda item before I close it? All right. If there is none, we're going to go back to the council, and I want to give one more chance to the council if they have any question or any comments on this agenda item.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
And this is for the city attorney. I'm wondering exactly what date does DeKalb County need the qualified candidates for the November election? You had said September before, but it was kind of vague as to when in September.
Right. So, well, before I was addressing what does the law say about the deadline, and what we learned, and Tracy knows more about this than me because she communicated with them directly, but what occurred is the DeKalb election superintendent got in touch with the municipal election superintendents and gave them notice that because of the huge expansion of absentee ballots, in order to get those ballots ready, they need to know who the candidates are way in advance. And they said that it needs to be no later than whatever it was that we set it at. So it's a practical issue.
Do we have a date?
Well, the dates in the past, it was, we can look at what the qualifying period was, and that was the date. We took the latest one they offered.
I think that's pretty much with this agenda item, and we're going to go to the next agenda item, which is E2, increase the amount of money for the rental relief program, and I refer Councilmember Carroll on this.
Yeah, this is Councilmember Carroll. Sorry for that. So essentially, as you may remember from the last council meeting, we allocated another $50,000 to the rental relief programs and $25,000 to the mortgage relief. If I'm not mistaken, all $50,000 of the rental relief has been exhausted, and Robin can update on this, but I don't know if we've had any completed applications for the mortgage relief at this time. And I think we've had numerous applications for rental relief after it was exhausted that had to be turned away because of lack of funds. So I think at this point, we're still waiting on the CARES Act funds from the county, and whether we'll get those next week or next month, I don't know. But I think it may be wise to go ahead and allocate possibly $25,000 to $50,000 of the remaining funds in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to rental relief, because that is an immediate need. And then it can be refilled once we ultimately get the money from DeKalb County. And Robin, I don't know if you want to speak to the mortgage issue, if you've received mortgage applications, or if you can correct me if anything what I said about the rental funds and expended so far is wrong.
No, that's correct, Councilman. For the rental relief, we have exhausted, well, we're currently at $149,684.75 that we've paid out. We do not have the ability to pay any more until more is authorized. 278 payments have been made. I currently have 22 applications pending that would equate to just over $12,000 for additional rental assistance. I've notified all of those individuals that we are, in essence, sort of pending, and likely the earliest, if more funding is approved, that we could make a payment would be essentially September the 2nd. Otherwise, we have also referred those 22 individuals to other agencies if there is an immediate need for them. Between yesterday and today, I've received an additional 15 requests. I didn't look through all of them just yet, but there were 15 that came in that appear to be, in other words, they've met the requirements. So clearly that would equate to, we've averaged just about $540 per applicant per payout. So an additional 15 would be roughly about another $8,000. So if those are the only ones that we receive through until next week, which I doubt, it seems like they trickle in throughout the weeks, then we would be at 20,000 based on what I just stated. We have received one application for the mortgage assistance. We have made one payout for just under $300.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Any questions from the council?
Mr. Gomez, you spoke about some other entities that were available. Were they, do you know the qualifying that have to take place for that company or organization? Do they meet that
there's multiple.
standard?
I believe so. I haven't researched all the others, but they are two that I'm aware of are fairly similar, the requirements to qualify. It's just a matter of folks reaching out to them, and really we just released, the county released a guide of agencies based on the funding that the county provided to nonprofits recently within the last couple of weeks. But a guide came out late last week. We released it, we published it, and there's multiple organizations on there. But until that was released, the main way to refer folks who may not otherwise know where to get help was to call 211, the 211 line that the United Way of Greater Atlanta runs, and they were providing a list of multiple agencies. But we've been referring folks to Envision Atlanta, to Positive Growth. Positive Growth is one of those agencies that received funding from the county, and they've been providing emergency assistance to include housing for more than a week now. And then also CPACS has a fund, and so again, the requirements are very similar from what I've read.
So if we do not allocate an additional $25,000 to $50,000, it would not mean that no one would get help. It just means that we wouldn't spend money we didn't have right now. Is that correct? Is that fair to ask? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, that was a question. Am I losing a connection?
I mean,
So basically,
I can
I'm just
hear
trying
you.
to see if we did not have the additional 25 to 50,000, is it safe to say that no one would be turned around from these organizations because they already have the funding in place, or it's just tough to say?
Yeah, without speaking to the agencies directly, I will infer that you are correct, Councilmember. There are other organizations, agencies, and it's just a matter of our residents contacting them and meeting their requirements.
Okay, thank you.
The one other thing I'll say is that we do have the money to increase it by 25 to 45,000 in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund right now. So it's not a question of spending money that we don't have. We do have the money. It's just a question if the council wants to provide further rental assistance or not. And I think that there is demand out there. And some of that may be satisfied by other agencies. Some of it may not. I mean, I don't think we can know, anyone sitting here can know for sure how much funds the other agencies have, how much is allocated to Clarkston versus other areas, what their qualifying requirements are exactly for each agency. So I I don't think we can say for certain that everybody would meet it or wouldn't meet it. I think that there definitely are other sources that are encouraged people to apply to right now. But also, I think that the city of Clarkston has money in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund that's allocated for this purpose that we could allocate if the council wanted to assist renters. They don't want to, of course, they don't have to.
I think that I personally do not believe there is any council member who does not want to help. I think that's really not a fair assessment. Even personally, I don't think the entire council has been supportive of this program, and as we will see on the next agenda item, I mean, myself, I thought that 50,000 is going to be enough for a month, and I did say at the last month's meeting that we will certainly increase the amount, but we were hoping that we will hear from the county by then, which unfortunately we haven't had a concrete result from the county yet. So, but still, I strongly believe that the council is strongly supportive of this program.
Glad to hear that.
All right. If there are no questions from the council, I will allow the public to speak on this agenda item. If you could please press either the hands raised button, or if you could type on the chat to speak on this agenda item.
Mr. Hadlock, you can proceed.
Yeah, I wanted to thank the council. I think y'all have done great in tackling this problem, and shown a great deal of compassion and care. I kind of wonder what, and I guess the city manager might be able to speak to this, what kind of publicity was given to apartment dwellers? How did they find out about these funds, and was the same kind of information forwarded to homeowners? That's one question I have. I'm surprised that there aren't more mortgage holders who are applying for this help. And the other thing is, I wanted to recommend that you expand the flexibility. Should be greater. That, for instance, if somebody would prefer to have, who's lost their job and needs help with mortgage or utility payments, that they could have the choice that the city could help them with utility payment instead of the mortgage. Those are my comments. I'm concerned that there are not more homeowners who have applied for this, or they even know that it's available. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I just want to say that I do know that the two programs have been sent out on the email blasts, and I've seen that it's been shared on social media. But I think usually the housing usually is pretty slower than the apartments, so that could be the reason. And the apartment
get the information.
It's a similar fashion, but I do remember initially I also reached out to most of the management companies of the apartments. I mean the apartment managements, and they do know about the program. I sent out a copy of the resolution we passed, and they also do refer them to the program. So if they know that somebody is behind on these payments. Any other comments?
Ms. Shana McAllister had her hand up. Please go ahead.
Go ahead, Shana.
Me, hey. So, I wanted to just remind myself how much.
Your voice is very low. Okay.
Hello? Oh, sure. Oh, sorry. Okay, now can you hear me? I had my speaker on. Okay. First off, I wanted to say thank you guys so much for the rental relief program. Man, I'm sweaty, folks. I wanted to thank you guys, but I also wanted to ask how much was allocated for mortgage relief, and then how much total has gone towards rent relief? Do you have the numbers on that?
Yes, I mean, I just can tell you on top of my head. So far, we have allocated $25,000 for mortgage relief, and so far we have already allocated and exhausted $150,000 for rental assistance programs.
Can you repeat that? Because I didn't have you on speaker.
$150,000 for rental assistance that has already been exhausted, and $25,000 for mortgage assistance.
Right. So we've exhausted pretty much all of the rent, but only one applicant for the mortgage relief, right? Yeah. Do you know how long this program might go on? Are we gonna continue to need help, you know, like at the end of this year or next year? I mean, how long do you think this will go on, the relief program?
Well, this is
really expensive, is what I'm asking.
It's a very tricky question, but we hope that we will be able to support the program, and if we do get more funding from the CARES Act funding, we certainly will be able to help folks until the end of the year, because that's the deadline for the CARES Act funds to be dispersed. So I can't say much about next year, but I think if we do get more funding from the CARES Act, we will be able to continue supporting the program until the end of the year.
Okay, cool.
I think we got to go to the next agenda. I'm sorry, we got to talk to other people if there is anybody else.
Yeah, go for it.
Anybody else on this agenda item? All right. You go ahead.
Oh, wait, can I say?
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. We got to get somebody who didn't speak yet. Anybody else who didn't speak so far? All right, Shauna, I'll give you one more minute. Go ahead if you could make it very short.
I don't have anything else to say.
Okay, thank you. Also, Warren, go ahead and just make it 1 minute.
It won't take a minute. I was just going to suggest that the city, at the very least, they could put this on the LED board that there's mortgage assistance available as well as rent assistance. Because I think there are just a lot of homeowners who don't know anything about it. They haven't heard about it. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. All right. If there is nobody else or going to speak on this agenda item, we're going to go to the next agenda item. And this will also give you guys a chance to speak about the rent relief, because this is almost the same agenda item. And this is housing relief and unemployed residents, both rent and mortgage relief, by partnering with nonprofit organizations and intergovernmental cooperation. And this is the agenda item that was presented by me in the previous month, and accordingly we distributed $75,000 in between rent assistance and mortgage assistance last month. And my hope was this will be enough to sustain the rent assistance program for about a month. And I've had a conversation with the council members, and that was the number that I thought was going to be enough. We were talking about even just putting $25,000 only, but I'm glad we did $50,000. So I'm pretty sure it would have been run out in the first week. So, and right now, if we do hear from the county by hopefully by next week, I really am hoping that we could, before next Tuesday, we could continue these programs, hopefully until the end of this year. And but unfortunately, we haven't heard any concrete answer from the county yet. If there are any questions from the council, I definitely would love to answer.
Councilman Carroll, so I have a question. Since we've received just one mortgage application and a lot more rental applications, would you be okay with making the 25,000 that we've allocated for mortgage and then the additional 25,000 open to both mortgage and rental applications, so that way we could use it to satisfy whichever applications come in, whether it's a bunch more mortgage or a bunch more rental, just while we're waiting for the DeKalb money?
The answer is yes and no, because if we just, allow the rental assistance program to be mingled with the mortgage assistance program, there will be no money left for anybody to apply for mortgage assistance, because as you see it's running out in about a week. So we got to think about also the other folks who might be at their last dollar, who have been able to sustain their mortgage so far. And if we finish it all the money, but I am considering certainly taking out the last $25,000, and that could be probably split into for both mortgage and rent assistance, but not the previous one. We already passed the $25,000. That is that should be left for only mortgage assistance program.
And the other thing I'll say is that there is a 12-month forbearance available for mortgages, which may be why we haven't had that many applications, is that most people that can't pay their mortgage have a year on which they can just not make payments under that Fannie Mae program. So that may be why we've only gotten one so far, just because of the availability of that program.
And it's that we are not having this, because it's just it's a bad problem to have. I honestly feel I'm glad that we are not having a mortgage crisis so far, but we definitely need to be proactive and make sure there are funds if that comes in that case. So, but yeah, there could be various reasons, and the biggest one I believe is probably because it's a lot slower, to foreclose on somebody. Any questions from the council before we get comments from the public?
This is Laura. I'd like to just make a comment on this. Last time when we allocated another 50,000 towards rental assistance and 25 towards mortgage assistance, I was the biggest advocate of just combining them and dish out the money as people applied, and did not see the point in separating it. And my mind has changed on that since then. In talking to people, I wasn't aware of the difference in timelines because, COVID is here to stay. It's not going to go away. And because it's faster to evict somebody in a rental, even if it's just a month faster or a few weeks faster. But I agree with the Vice Mayor that when people who are homeowners do hit a problem, there's not going to be any money left for them to apply, because those who were in apartments have already applied and used the entirety of the funds. So the amount that we have delegated for mortgage assistance is a really small amount, but I do think it should be earmarked for those people, because they are not going to come looking for it this week. And when they do come looking for it, I'm hoping there will be something for them so that we do not prioritize renters over homeowners. That's all. The other thing I would say is that I think that you're right about the timeline, but both
Vice Mayor and Paul Hopkins are right about the timeline, that the mortgage crisis, if it comes, will be much longer down the road, which is why I think that, once we get the DeKalb money, we could refill and possibly allocate amounts just for mortgage. But it just seems like the rental crisis is immediate, that it's here right now. So I would hate to make, I agree we need to help both groups. I would just hate to let people get evicted right now because we're holding money that we want to use down the road when we could be helping people right now and then refilling the money later with the DeKalb money. That's my only thinking, is that people, may be homeless in the next couple months, and we want to help those people as much as we can, versus people that may need the mortgage assistance that we can refill, 6 months, 8 months, however long it is down the road.
I totally disagree with that assessment. First of all, what you said is not true. We're not holding no money. That's not true statement. We have already put in, so we had a total of $200,000 in the Affordable Housing Fund. And out of all of that, we have allocated $175,000, and we left the $25,000 for any contingency. And as I told you again, I'm willing to make the last $25,000 to be spent for both rent and mortgage assistance in this case, because we already have the $25,000 placed for any mortgage contingency. So I just disagree with your assessment saying that we're holding money. That's not true. We have actually put in the overall majority of the affordable housing funds for almost all of it has been placed for rental assistance. And I totally am fine with it, and we're going to go ahead. We're going to put in more money. And we can't also say if we get money from the county, we can't set policies by saying if. So as long as we don't have the money, we cannot really say, oh, when we get the money, we're going to put it back. Well, we can't say that because we don't know when we're going to get it or if we're going to get it even. So I think at this point, let's work on what we have in our hands. There are $25,000 in the Affordable Housing Trust, the last remaining. We could use those, but this time we could say we're going to use those for both rent and mortgage assistance other than just for one program, because we have put in the $25,000 just as a contingency program.
Well, when I say we're holding money, we're holding $24,700 in the mortgage assistance that we've gotten one applicant for $300. So we're holding that money, and we may get another applicant for another $300 next month, and maybe one more the month after that. But in the meantime, that money is just sitting there. So that's why I'm saying that money could be made available to both homeowners and renters, and then possibly be refilled if we get the DeKalb money. So that's all I'm suggesting. But if you would rather hold that money for future homeowners, I do understand the timeline is different. So I do agree that the mortgage crisis, if it comes, will be a much longer way down the road. I don't think we're seeing any imminent wave of foreclosures in the next couple months even.
Any other questions from the council? Or any comments from the public? Yes, go ahead, Councilmember Hopkins.
I just wanted to point out that although Councilman Carroll was correct in saying that there is a period where some people can not pay their mortgage for up to a year. I just want to qualify that by saying that's only on certain types of loans. There's a lot of people with loans that are not covered by that program who might end up in foreclosure court in the next month. So yes, if you have Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, some insured federal government insured mortgage, yes, you have coverage, and we could even exclude that from being a beneficiary of our program because they do have that protection, but not all mortgages have that protection, and I think that's important to note. It would be if you were one of the people holding one of those mortgages.
I agree with that. I think that might be a good condition to make for the future funds, that it's for someone that's not eligible for the 12th month forbearance, and that they'd be required, if they are eligible, they'd be required to get that first and then come back. And if they're not eligible, then they should get priority over the people that are eligible for the 12-month forbearance.
And it also is definitely the one to make the final decision, so he knows about these programs and he will definitely prioritize. All right, if there are no comments from the council, I want to open the public to comment on this agenda item.
Mr. Hadlock had his hand up. Please proceed, Mr. Hadlock.
Yeah, I want to say that even a homeowner who might be able to stick it out for 12 months without being evicted is going to have a wretched credit rating. It's going to wreak havoc on his credit rating or her credit rating. They get 12 months behind in their mortgage, or any substantial number of months behind, any 2 or 3 months behind. And I would also say that we need to reach out more to the homeowner population of Clarkston to make sure they know about this, that we haven't been doing enough to reach out to them evidently. And also I would put it to you that a homeowner losing their home and that home going up on the courthouse steps for sale is going to have a hell of a lot bigger negative impact on the city than an apartment dweller being evicted. One apartment going vacant, it's going to be refilled. It's a very important thing to understand and be aware of the importance of homeownership and people staying in their homes and their credit remaining in good standing. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Any other comments on agenda item E4? All right. If there is none, I will close the public comment on this agenda item. We're going to go to the next agenda item, which is E5. I didn't skip any agenda, did I? Okay, yeah. Which is consider joining Common Cause lawsuit against Trump administration census memorandum. And I just want to, this has been introduced by me and Councilmember Johnson. I just want to give you a little background on this agenda item. A couple of months ago, I was reached out by an organization called Common Cause, which is also located here in Atlanta, that is doing organizing a lawsuit against the Trump administration's memorandum that actually wanted to exclude people who are not citizens from the upcoming census, and this definitely would be not a good policy, particularly for Clarkston, which is home to so many people who are not law-abiding citizens, who are not U.S. citizens, but who are legally here in America, and this would definitely not be attractive to. I mean, it would not be a great idea to begin. First, it would siphon some resources from our cities. It would also reduce the number of representations that we could possibly have. So I thought that it's a good idea to add our city to the list of plaintiffs on this matter, and I really hope we could do that. It will not cost the city anything. All the legal fees will be paid by a pro bono or a legal firm that's doing this pro bono, and this will not impact the city funds whatsoever. Is there anything you want to add, Councilmember Johnson? Councilmember Garza? I'm not sure if she can hear me, but in the meantime, I'm just wondering, do we have anybody from Common Cause on the line? Because I did send the invitation to them, and I would love to hear from them if they're on the call or if they are participating. If you could please raise your hand or something.
Mr. Vice Mayor, Keisha Morris Desir from Common Cause is here on the line. So thank you so much for introducing this, and thank you, Council, for considering this this evening. If you would like me to expand a little bit more on the lawsuit, I'm happy to do that.
Please.
Okay. So yes, as Mr. Vice Mayor mentioned, Common Cause is joined by the City of Atlanta, Dayton, Ohio, Patterson, New Jersey, the City of El Paso, and Portland, Oregon, along with a few or 20 or so individual plaintiffs across the states of Florida, New York, New Jersey, and Texas, to stop the Trump administration's attempt to exclude undocumented people from the 2020 census apportionment counts. So our Constitution has long said that everyone that's counted in the census should be counted for the purposes of apportionment. That is even made clearer by the 14th Amendment. And so any attempt to not include people that happen to be here, maybe not legally, quote unquote, but are living here and paying taxes here, definitely deserve representation. We also know that children, although they're not, and people under the age of 18, although they're often not able to vote directly, are represented by our representatives in Congress. So this attempt is definitely unconstitutional. It is very slim chances that the administration will succeed in this attempt, but we have to challenge this in court, because the Census Bureau and the Commerce Department had already said that they are moving forward with what it takes to remove undocumented people from apportionment counts once the 2020 census concludes. So that would have definite impacts on cities like Clarkston that have large immigration populations, as it definitely refers to representatives in Congress. So if folks have additional questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being on the line. If there are any questions from the council, that would be great. I would appreciate it, and we have the organization that can respond to the questions. Any questions from the council?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Councilman.
I thought the citizenship immigration question had been removed from the census. Am I wrong on that?
No, you are. Thank you so much for the question. No, you're absolutely not wrong. So any attempt by the administration to remove people that are here or undocumented will be done by an estimate that is not clear, and the administration or the Census Bureau will try to use administrative records from like Homeland Security or the IRS to do that removal from apportionment counts, which folks already know is very not exact. So anything that the Census Bureau would do would be an estimation, which is what we are saying is a violation of the enumeration clause in Title 13. And so, yeah, the Census Bureau is required to do an actual enumeration every 10 years. So any kind of estimates that will remove people would be in violation of that.
Thank you so much. I just want to make sure I talk to our city attorney, Mr. Quinn, if there is anything that we have to consider, any ramification from this. I definitely would love to hear from you.
Sure. Well, I mean, I don't have any reason to doubt that this is a good lawsuit and well done and represented by good lawyers. But just to, you know, give you hypothetically, the downside of entering any litigation is that once you're in, the court has to let you out. So you never know if the other side might try to file some kind of motion to ask for attorney's fees. I'm not worried about anything like that in this case, but that is the risk that is assumed. And of course, I think that, and our guest can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that would be taken care of by their organization.
Yes, it would be.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? All right, if there is none, Councilmember Hopkins, you want to say something? Go ahead. Okay, I thought you say you turned on your speaker. If there are no comments from the council, I will move to the to open for comments from the public. If you have any comments on this agenda item, please go ahead. And if people came late, we are talking about the agenda item, consider joining common cause lawsuit against the Trump administration census memorandum. I guess there is no comments on this agenda item. And if not, we're going to go ahead and close the public comments on this agenda item, and I want to go back and give the chance to the council one more time if you have thought of anything you want to speak on this agenda item.
This is Laura. I just think that the memo to expect the whole country to go out and do a physical count of every citizen and then take some kind of a wild guess on how many of those should not be included or not be counted, even though they will be using the roads, the hospitals, all of the resources that will be allocated based on this is absurd. I think joining this lawsuit is an obvious one for us. I don't think we would have any choice in Clarkston but to join it, because it is clearly unconstitutional and dangerous, because not only is it the apportionment of our representatives in Congress, but everybody uses that census data. And we don't want to come up short for health care, for everything that a community needs. And I also have absolutely no confidence in anyone's ability to estimate undocumented residents or residents that are not legitimately documented. And by that, I mean, I may or may not have hired people in the past that did not have correct documentation, but they absolutely were able to present the forms needed for W-2, I-9, fill out employment paperwork, taxes were being taken out, copy of their driver's license, social security card. But I've also been in the situation in a workplace where I got called from the corporate headquarters to say, check somebody's again because they have 9 people in the system with the same social security number. There is no way as an employer to know if somebody comes up with a social security card and a driver's license. There's some darn good forgeries out there. So there's no way they could make an estimate on that. And even if they could, the people still exist. They're not fictional people, and they need, you know, space on the roads and all, as I say, all the resources that need to be allocated based on population, not population anybody chooses to like or not like. So I would completely support this.
Thank you, Councilmember Hopkins. I totally agree. This is really, I mean, this has been going on, and for the last 250 years or so, it's been the same thing. And the biggest challenge, especially for cities like Clarkston, is regardless of your immigration status, you're still going to use the school resources, and a lot of children who probably were brought here by their parents when they were very young, they still use the educational facilities, and they still use the roads, as you mentioned it correctly. Everybody uses. So I think not counting people based on immigration status is totally irresponsible, and I think we definitely need to continue with this agenda. And thank you. If there are any comments from the council, again, I want to thank Common Cause for bringing this to our attention, and hopefully you will also be able to join us next Tuesday when we vote on this agenda item. We're going to go to the next agenda item. I think I have skipped one. I kind of felt that, and I'm sorry, it's only one-page agenda. That's why I missed it. Agenda item number E4, which is Clarkston Workforce Development Initiative. And this is being introduced by me and Councilmember Johnson. And this is pretty self-explanatory. We know because of COVID-19, over 30 or 40 million Americans have lost their jobs. I'm pretty sure the city of Clarkston, just like any other Americans, have been also impacted by this. And the idea is to make sure that we kind of try to help people get back on the workforce, or at least equip them with some skills that they could be ready for similar jobs, but if not, better paying jobs, hopefully. And I see that there is a trend so far, because if the COVID-19 continues longer, there is going to be a lot of technology taking over certain workforces. I mean, we can mention, for example, things like cab drivers. Right now, it's been taken over by technology. We have Uber and all the other app companies and Lyft that made that profession really, you can't really feed your family with that anymore. So, and we do have substantial number of people who are supporting their family being cab drivers here in Clarkston as well. So I think we need to be proactive, and if there are anything we could do. I did have a chance to speak with Friends of Refuge. I'm not sure if he's on the line, and I definitely would love to recognize him as well. Brian, are you on the line?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. If you could give us a little background about the Friends of Refuge workforce development programs, that would be very helpful as we are trying to develop one in Clarkston here.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and more broadly than just Friends of Refugees, I think all of us are, somewhat familiar with refugee serving organizations that have done and do job placement and job training and combinations thereof. One that's inside Clarkston city limits is the Career Hub program there in the old parsonage building of the Methodist Church, where we've been at for a couple of years now. And we do, it's a walk-in employment center, pre-COVID. And typical year, we would do about 2,000 resumes and about 200 to 300 job placements at about 50 or so companies in the North Georgia area. Most of what we handle is really what we call post-resettlement job upgrades. So not, not the job placements that would happen when someone first arrives in the U.S., such as maybe as a processor at a poultry plant, but instead moving more toward career opportunity jobs. And I would add that, prior to being at World Relief, I ran the job program for World Relief, prior to being at Friends of Refugees. And I did about 2,000 placements of Clarkston residents at almost 200 different companies. And I can say that pretty consistently, when I look at the opportunity trends that we're seeing for what I would call sustainable work opportunities at scale, which is to say placement service that would be able to achieve not just a token handful of 10 or 20 job placements, but looking at more at what does it look like at 100 or 200 placements. I think that narrows down fairly quickly to a handful of subsectors in our greater area here. In particular, slightly more advanced jobs in the cross-docking and supply chain management space. Like obviously the easy example is the new Amazon warehouse. Then also more of people lateraling across into construction. When I say construction, I mean more on the side of like lightweight early versions of electrical training placement, becoming either a sort of labor or a journeyman for companies like Eckhart or Carrier or MARTA. And then along those same lines, also HVAC. So if I were, really spitballing where I could see, especially our native born and our more longtime residents in the area transitioning into growing career spaces, anything that kind of touches one of those three big things is where I would encourage the most looking at how to do it. I was just having a meeting a week before last with the head of workforce development at DeKalb County, and we were both brainstorming through some of the new companies entering the area, and just realizing again, if it's not at a wage of $15 to $25 an hour, it's not likely to sustainably put a family on a roadmap to being solidly in the middle class. And so that just very, very quickly limits the things that we're going to see both placed into quickly and that are growing sectors. So I'll stop there and offer to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bollinger. And in anticipation of such program, I actually have proposed to hopefully, if we get the CARES Act funding, one of the 12 projects that we have placed is one of them is going to be workforce development, and we have plans to spend up to $100,000 for workforce development. The only catch is we have very limited window, which is only about 3.5 months. And my question to you, Brian, is again, would you think that we could achieve much within 3.5 months of time and be able to accomplish something in terms of workforce development?
My recommendation, if you're talking about a 90-day window, is and I may be wildly wrong about this, so I'm totally open to criticism. My recommendation would be to just take a highly aggressive approach to offering to pay by placement for non-temp to perm, but straight direct hire job placements at minimum windows of wage that are maybe chosen by the individual from the community here being served and the service provider, so that there's agency there. It's not someone who needs a higher end placement being forced into something lower, et cetera, and there's some mutuality in the goal setting. But I would not try to over structure that, which is counter to what I guess, from as a nonprofit, typically, oh, let's launch a program. But honestly, I would just take a very aggressive pay to play approach, and and basically say, yeah, you get, half the payment on the placement and half at 60 days retention or whatever that may be. We can talk details, but it occurs to me that would encourage lots of partners in the community to get up and get moving. And frankly, I would not close it down to even individual citizens that wanted to choose to be quote unquote headhunters for their own neighbors. Hey, you make a referral placement and it sticks and everybody's happy, the community will reimburse you as an individual. It's taxable income, but I just think that could result in a groundswell of people helping people get good jobs.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions or comments from the council on this agenda item?
Yeah, this is Councilman Carroll. So I have a question maybe for Brian or someone else in council that wants to speak. How possible is it to do training remotely during COVID for workforce development? Is it something that we can do the training remotely, or do you think it's something that would have serious training would have to wait till, at least people can meet in person? I didn't know whether or not that was feasible.
It depends on what the training is. In this case, like for example, we're doing this training right now, part of the Southeast Sustainable Communities Fund, training people for light construction with a focus on electrical and energy efficiency. And we're doing that in partnership with Tecton, and Laura Green and her crew over there have developed a really solid in-person training approach that has, a lot of outdoor exposed air training environment, great safety protocols, and all the equipment they need to get handling time on. It's very similar to some of our peer organizations that we've been collaborating with through that network in Goodwill and a few other places in Tennessee and in Florida and North Carolina. So I feel like things like that, especially if you're working with a not native speaker of English trainee, you're going to have lots of barriers to really good learning taking place. That being said, even our Career Hub is doing online trainings for individuals right now that are leading to some placements. And I think if it was more like going to be working as an advanced logistician, technician at the Amazon warehouse, I think that's going to be relatively easy to train for remotely versus something where you need to be able to handle, air sealing rubber gaskets.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the council? And I really want to thank you, Brian. And I also was wondering because in terms of the idea is just like you said, to be aggressive, and also there are certain things that we could still train residents, such as resume writing, or it could be some basic things that could definitely help people in the future. Maybe they might not use it right now within 3 months, but definitely that knowledge will be with them. And things like that, I think, would be also great that we could also accomplish in a short period of time.
Absolutely. And this is education is never wasted.
Thank you. And this is a discussion, and like I said, that we already have plans to spend some money on this, and I really appreciate you, Brian. If you could hopefully get in touch with our city manager and discuss further, that would be very helpful of you.
Yep, glad to do it. And please, everyone, remember that our Career Hub serves everyone, not just new Americans or really anyone. We serve anyone that quote unquote walks through our door. I know that's more of a phone call these days, but as you said, about training for how to successfully do your online interview. We're actually doing a training for that right now, and you can go enroll in that by just sending an email to our Career Hub. If you go to our website, just click on the Career Hub.
Thanks so much, sir. Go ahead, Councilmember Hopkins.
Okay, I just would like to say I would like to get together and talk with you about this some more, Brian, because you sort of hit a nerve when you said like very aggressive, like job finding. In a previous incarnation, I was a headhunter for finance and accounting executives, and I was extremely aggressive. Like we were technically full desk. We could do temp to hire or permanent placement, marketing and recruiting, but I never did any temp to hire. I'm like, you know, you're a VP, I'm going to get you a job. And so I'm very into that. A big part of what we did was coaching people for the interviews and also debriefing them after the interviews. And so this whole process, how it would work in this context at this level is really interesting to me. And you obviously have a lot of good information. I would like to see how we could sort of help apply it here. So if we could.
I love it. We always say that the most powerful tool we have in our Career Hub is the social networks of our volunteers. And I think at a city level, it's the exact same story. You know, the most powerful tool.
We lost you.
I'm sorry, I think.
Oh, he got muted. Brian, you muted yourself.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I was just saying your personal network leveraged on behalf of your neighbor. I mean, that's the most powerful tool that we have, more so than trainings or really anything. It's an individual helping an individual.
Agreed.
Thank you. Any other comments from the council? Councilmember Johnson, did you want to say something?
No, I'm totally in agreement with the whole process. The only question I had would have been for Stephen. You basically stated that we would have 3 months to do the training, but I was under the impression, Stephen, that if we secured a contract with someone, it doesn't mean the training would be limited to the end of December. It would just mean that we would have to spend the money by December. Is that correct? So if the program needed to be 6 months, it could be 6 months.
I'm afraid that's incorrect. Now, there may be CARES 2, but the CARES Act funds that are currently, perhaps, hopefully coming to the city under the federal law, the funds can be paid out before March of 2021 if the goods and services are received before December 30th. So it's kind of the opposite of what you were saying, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that's the catch.
So the program would have to be complete by the end of the year.
That's what I'm a bit concerned about. But I think still we do have some time between now and December 30. I think this is a discussion, and we already have implicated in our resolution that we will plan to spend up to $100,000 for workforce development, and I think hopefully that we get the money soon, and we could definitely start negotiating and talking about how we can implement it. Any other comments? So we're going to go to the public. If you have any comments regarding agenda item E4, which is the workforce development program.
Mr. Dean Moore has his hand up. Please proceed, Mr. Moore.
Yes, I'm curious to know if anybody is aware that former State Senator Steve Henson has a construction training program that would be a good ally or possibly a resource for the city to reach out to him and possibly get him involved as well. He's retiring from the Senate and is trying to get his career back on track, I think is the way he described it, getting ready for his retirement. But I think it'd be a really important resource for the city and for Brian and any type of workforce development to consult with him and see if he has any guidance or wants to participate. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other comments?
Brian Medford has his hand up. Please proceed, Brian Medford.
Yes, this is a fantastic program. I'm a huge proponent of any sort of technical training. We're heading toward a real bad spot with, there's gonna be a lot of gaps in a lot of the technical areas, not just construction, but just in the vocational programs in general. And so these are good, solid jobs that are gonna be around for a long time, that are gonna be desperately needed. This is a great opportunity for us to help get some people into some careers that will really serve them and their families for a long time. I can trace my entire career back to a vocational training I took in high school. It made that much of a difference. I grew up in a blue-collar family, ran shops, and built houses. So this is the kind of thing that I'd love to see more often around the city. I know we have some great programs, but anything we can do to keep building on these programs to give people good, solid jobs, I am all for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Medford. And by the way, you did mention about assistance with utility payments, and we have also allocated about $100,000 to be spent for that. So I want to thank you for your public comments on last month. Other comments from the public? Okay, I'm going to close the public comment section on this, and I want to give one more chance to the council if they have anything you want to say, or if Brian, if you have any last things you want to add to this, you're also welcome.
My last thing to mention, hearing the remark about construction. Right now, you know, we're experiencing a residential boom and a medical facilities boom, the likes of which I've never seen. And I was placing people through, you know, before the last recession. And I was talking to the CEO of Vaughn Lumber a couple of weeks ago up in Tucker, and he said that in a few more months, he's not sure how he's even going to be able to source enough timber. And a commercial builder I know that specializes in medical facilities said they have more work lined up than they have any way to source enough workers for. And I mean relatively skilled workers, but not necessarily like tradespersons. And so yeah, the demand is really strong, and I don't see those two types of demands fading in the near future.
Thanks so much again. Mr. Gomez, do you want to add anything to this?
No, I think we'll just, as you've stated, speak with Mr. Bollinger, and we'll go based on how the council direction and do whatever we need to do.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gomez. I'm going to close the comment and also the agenda item on discussion on this. We're going to go to the next agenda item, which is E6. Discuss removing section 13/3 from the municipal code, and this has been introduced by Councilmember Hopkins and myself. I want to recognize Councilmember Hopkins on this.
Yeah, thank you. That item is specifically addressing people over 12 years old are not allowed to play baseball or softball on the fields at Milam Park. And at the time when I first read that in our code, I thought that was possibly one of the most absurd things I've ever heard, that adults aren't allowed to play ball in the park. I've since been educated on the reasons behind that, because there's no fence around the outfield of that park, and I believe it's smaller than standard and it's also directly facing the children's playground, the swimming pool, and the dog park, that if, you know, a full-grown man were to crack a ball, you know, out of the park, as they say, it probably would not be out of the park, but it would be raining blunt instruments down on the playground and the swimming pool and the dog park. So there is a reason. I mean, granted, a 12-year-old could possibly do that too, but it's less likely, and it only applies to baseball and softball. Like, adults could have a kickball league and play on that field, just not baseball and softball. So rather than eliminate it from the city code, I am wondering, and this would be a question for Mr. Quinn, if we can put language in there that clarifies the reason behind, just to say something like to the effect, for the safety of the other visitors in the park, on the playgrounds, in the swimming pool, visitors are not allowed to play baseball on the field if they're over 12 years.
We certainly could add that to an ordinance, or without even doing that, we could add it to like a sign that if there is one there.
Okay. If we could work out something like that just to get some clarity, that would be better. I no longer believe eliminating it is the correct answer, but I don't want some other council member to go through the same thing in a couple of years, because it's not immediately obvious, I guess, if you're not a big ball player, which I'm not. But the people I spoke to said, yeah, somebody could do a lot of damage knocking balls from that home plate, the way it's facing. Okay.
And I also do remember hearing something about this where I probably misunderstood it, but I think also other sporting activities besides baseball and I think softball are not allowed in that space, and I am really kind of not sure if that was to dissuade people from playing soccer or something there. I'm not sure why, but
no, the code does specify baseball and softball on the diamond. It doesn't say anything about adults on the upper field, on the soccer field. It just says baseball and softball on the diamond. So I think we could just clean up the language so it's more apparent what the goal of that is, not just age discrimination for the fun of it, but for protection. And it made more sense once I heard that and then went back and checked it and said, okay, it does say baseball and softball.
And I'm also not sure about the violation of the section 1 or up to 7 of this code. I'm not sure what it says. What is the penalty for this? Mr. Quinn, do you happen to see?
That's the default penalty section, which basically says what Georgia law is, that the judge can punish up to 6 months in jail and a $1,000 fine. That's the default for every ordinance violation unless it says otherwise by the city council.
Wow, that's pretty, yeah, that's pretty harsh.
I agree. I mean, I presume that the judge would see it the same way if it was all that was going on was playing baseball.
All right. Do you want to add anything, Councilmember Hawkins?
I think that, I'm sorry, I was muted. No, I think if by next week we come up with a suggested addition or alteration to the language on that, it won't be a change in substance, but just in clarity.
Thank you, Councilmember Hawkins. Any questions or comments from the council on this agenda item? All right, if there is none, we will open questions or comments from the public on this agenda item number E6, which is discuss removing section 13/3 from the municipal code. And go ahead, raise your hand or type on the chat box.
Just me?
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry, Brian Medford. No, I saw this too, and I honestly thought it was one of the vestiges of the Lee Swaney years, because there was the mandate years ago about no soccer playing at the upper field. So I had no idea that this wasn't part of some more nefarious rulemaking that had been done in the past. So now you're in the clear, Laura. But now seeing that there is an actual issue here, and having stood on that field and seen, yeah, we're not really protected the way it should be. If anything, it almost makes the baseball field an attractive nuisance. But I guess as long as nobody gets hurt anytime soon, just leaving it as is the best call. So no harm, no foul.
Thanks, sir. Anybody else want to comment on this agenda item?
I like the no harm, no foul pun. That's funny.
That's right. All right. If there is none, I also want to give it a last chance to the council if you want to comment or question anything on this agenda item. All right. If there is none, we're going to go to the last agenda item, which is discuss enforcing section 13/4 for outdoor lighting in the parks and specifically in 40 Oaks Nature Preserve. And this is again being presented by Councilmember Hopkins and also myself. Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes, this obviously, came out of the environmental committee meeting, and I had brought it there because the lights have been on all night, very bright throughout the forest in 40 Oaks since DeKalb County installed them. But it actually should not have been on this agenda because Mr. Gomez made it clear that that was a situation that DeKalb County wasn't aware that that was now a Clarkston City Park and installed the lights. And at the moment, we don't have control over them. And when we do, we will not be leaving them on all night. So is anything you'd like to add, Mr. Gomez?
I think you got it correct, and something that the county did to try to improve safety and security at county parks, and they still had 40 Oaks on their list as a county park when they provided the project to install lights at multiple county parks, when they provided that list to Georgia Power. So Georgia Power didn't know otherwise. They just went and installed the lights. And as I stated at the Standing Advisory Committee, I've reached out to Georgia Power to get the information, waiting to hear back from them so they can transfer the service to the city, which means we will get the bill as well going forward, but the electricity usage will be minimal since the lights will be coming off essentially likely within an hour of sunset.
Okay. And no idea when we're going to hear back on that? I mean,
hopefully
I'm sorry?
They had mentioned originally that toward the end of the summer, we would have the bill switched over. They wanted it to cycle through the Georgia Power billing through several cycles. I don't know why, I don't understand that, but that's fine. They're paid to us. But I reached out to the county, to the Georgia Power lighting area or exterior lighting section so that they can transfer that to us.
Thanks, sir. And just to give a little background to the public members here who did not attend the committee meeting, so there is a very bright light that is at the 40 Oaks that has been on all night, and that's what concerned Councilmember Hopkins and decided to bring it up, and that would not be friendly for the animals trying to have a nice nightcap. They might think it's daytime, I guess. But and also it just was just waste of energy to put some lights on in the middle of a forest, I guess. But that was a mistake done by the county, so that's going to be corrected. And if you have any comments, please feel free to make any comments as well. So I just want to give you a little background on the agenda item. Any comments from the council first? All right, if there is none, we're going to go to the public. If you want to comment on this agenda item, please go ahead and raise your hands or put a right on the chat box.
Mr. Dean Moore has his hand up. Mr. Moore, please proceed.
Can I defer to go last?
You might be the first and last.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then I'll go last. The lighting that has been installed, I don't want to encourage anybody to remove something that's already installed, but I would like to encourage the council to direct the city manager to look into the possibility of having electronic devices installed to be able to control the lighting, possibly from one point, but also to potentially allow for a remote control that the police department, sergeant on duty or whoever's on duty, officers on duty, can carry remote controls that if they do get called to report to one of the parks because there are complaints or problems or violent outbreaks, that they can click the lights on as they approach. Be a matter of security. So I think we maintain our lighting, keep it off at the proper times, but have the ability to turn them on when they're needed from a remote device. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. I think Councilmember Hadlock has his hands up. Go ahead, sir. Mr. Hadlock?
Yes, I'm sorry, I had myself muted. I think what Dean is what Dean's talking about is a great idea. I think it's being done. It's a doable thing. So yeah, it'd be conceivably very helpful, I would think, if the police could do something like that, could have something like that at their control in their cruisers. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, council and everybody listening, hopefully most or many of you are aware our police already have quite a bit of lighting capability between their vehicle and their person. But we will, that's already available. If I've actually received some comments from residents about how bright the lights are that our police, certainly our vehicles have, and the equipment that our officers have. So as we need it, anytime when there is minimal or no sunlight, we have that capability as well. But we will look and speak with Georgia Power about having that capability, as Mr. Moore stated, as well.
Any other comments before I close the public comments on this agenda item?
Yes, I'd like to have a rebuttal.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, we had an incident several years ago where there was a shooting at the apartments near my house, and I don't have any lighting in the woods at my house. But in the event that there is a manhunt going on in a wooded area, commercial lighting may be advantageous. Just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. I think that's all the public comments on this agenda item. I will close the public comments on it. And are there any comments that the council want to make regarding any agenda item, please go ahead. All right, I guess this is going to be the shortest work session we've had in a while, so probably in the last 5 years that I've been in the council. Well, seeing none, that's all we have for tonight. Thank you so much, everybody. I hope you will be able to join us next Tuesday as well. And thanks again. Join the meeting.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.